Thank you so much for having me here today and for the opportunity to present to you. My name is Holly Muscolino, and I'm a Group VP at IDC. For those of you who are not familiar with IDC, we're an IT market research and advisory firm. I lead IDC's Workplace Solutions team, which includes research on all the areas that are listed here to provide a holistic view of an employee's work environment. And of course, that includes content technologies, collaborative tools, imaging and printing. We look at the future of work as well as the current state of work, IT skills, and human capital management. But my specific area of expertise is content technologies. And of course, that's what we're here to talk about today. So let's get started. It should be apparent to everyone by now that digital transformation is a journey, not a specific destination. So we're going to start by exploring where organizations are in that journey. Then we're going to look at a technology that is important in driving digital transformation, and that's component content management systems. And then finally, we're going to take a look into the future, including the role of AI and also a proposed unified content model. So let's begin by taking a look at that journey to become a digital business. So in the early stages of digital transformation, or DX, initiatives were often siloed and project-based, targeting short-term goals and really weren't designed for scalability. The focus was on very specific financial outcomes, such as cost savings. In the next stage, we saw digitalization across the enterprise and at scale, and there was an expanded view of outcomes. So we started to look at things like customer experience or employee experience. As we move into the third stage, organizations are looking at how they can leverage their new digital capabilities for new value creation. And at IDC, we're calling organizations in this stage a digital-first business. And as you can see from this slide, IDC defines a digital business as one where value creation is based and dependent on the use of digital technologies. And that includes everything from how processes are run to the products and the services and the experiences that the organization provides. Now, at IDC, we run a global survey of IT and business decision makers on a monthly basis. And we ask folks if they consider themselves to be a digital business. And here's the data from our March 2024 survey. And you can see that over 80% of organizations are still on their way to becoming a digital business. Almost half say that they have a digital strategy in place and that they're in the process of transforming portions of their business. Just over 1/3 say that they're mostly there. They have a digital-first strategy, they're deploying digital technologies across the business, but only 11% say that being a digital business is core to their business model. So what does all of this have to do with content and with documents? I don't have to remind this audience that content and documents are the lifeblood of any business, whether we're talking about customer communications driven by marketing, to regulatory filings from finance, to both internal and external knowledge bases, to sales proposals and contracts. The business cannot run without content and documents. And in fact, 90% of the data produced by organizations globally is unstructured data. So, digitally transforming content processes is critical to any digital transformation initiatives. So, where do we see organizations today? Just as many organizations are still on their journey to becoming a digital business, so they are also in the process of transforming their content-centric workflows. 14% of organizations in a recent survey told us that their content workflows are still manual and paper-based, or perhaps they're just digital versions of those paper-based workflows, which means that they're still highly inefficient. Just under 40% have partially re-engineered their content workflows. These workflows are still interrupted by manual steps. For example, a digital document that's printed, signed, scanned in, and emailed. Just under 30% have an enterprise-wide strategy supported by a stack of modern content services technologies. And we see that 17% are on that leading edge. So they're using AI and analytics to support those content and document workflows. And we'll hear about AI later in this presentation. So what are a few reasons for this? One reason is that, not surprisingly, content is frequently distributed across the organization. And that's not only in different content repositories, it's in your enterprise applications, your HR, your ERP systems, your supply chain systems, in your social feeds, in your email, and so on and so forth. Only 1/4 of content is mostly or completely centralized versus distributed across all of these various repositories or tools or applications. Over 40% of content in organizations is at least somewhat siloed. And there's other challenges as well. Because content is often highly distributed, it's frequently difficult to find the content that you need. And over half of content is unnecessarily replicated when someone needs the same content, possibly for a related purpose. The other problem is the sheer number of different solutions that employees are using across that content lifecycle or across that content supply chain. On average, 10 different solutions provide content services to an organization. And not surprisingly, this is slightly lower for mid-sized organizations and slightly higher for larger organizations. These challenges become even more difficult when dealing with large, complex, and/or highly regulated documents. When we're looking at these document types, we see that they frequently have reusable components or components that need to be switched in and out depending on the ultimate recipient. They need to be updated frequently, and they may need to be delivered in multiple language. Often, they need to be delivered through multiple delivery channels. And, many organizations, or many business documents, I should say, need to comply with corporate, industry, and/or government regulations. To make all of this worse, we are increasingly seeing distributed teams contributing to and producing these documents. And of course, we saw this more and more as a result of the pandemic several years ago. So what is the solution for these challenges? So we believe that a critical technology to alleviate many of these concerns is a component content management system and structured authoring. In that recent survey that I mentioned, 49% of IT decision makers reported that they were invested in a CCMS. They had invested in a CCMS in the past year, and another 36% said they had investments planned in the next 12 to 18 months. Now, this wasn't only net new investments. This could be ongoing licenses and subscriptions and so forth. However, still a significant number of organizations that are using these tools. So we asked these organizations why they're making these investments. And you can see that the primary reasons align very closely with the specific challenges that we saw a few slides ago. Organizations are seeking better compliance with industry and government regulations. They want to create more relevant, personalized content and multiple versions of content that they can then deliver through multiple delivery channels. And they want to solve that problem of siloed content with increased centralization, and that would drive more reuse and less duplication, and of course be more efficient. So we also asked about the benefits that they experienced by deploying a CCMS. You can see that they saw improvements across multiple business metrics, including reduced cost, increased revenue, increased employee productivity, and improved customer experience. But they also reduced their regulatory and reputational risk. You can see that about 1/3 noted that content center and other service employees were more likely to have access to the information they need, which of course would lead to a better customer experience. And in fact, we found that the development of knowledge bases, both internal and external, is a growing use case for a component content management system. When we asked respondents which document types were created and managed by their CCMS, you can see in these orange bars here that knowledge bases and support content were near the top of the list. And learning and development content, which is of course related, was also frequently cited. And then we asked the respondents about the consumers of the content produced or managed by their CCMS. And again, you can see that knowledge management systems were selected by almost 2/3 of respondents. So why are CCMS being used for knowledge bases and knowledge management systems? Well, there's several reasons. A CCMS can significantly improve knowledge management by offering several advantages. One is that modular content makes it much easier to find and share and reuse existing knowledge across the organization. The tagging and metadata enable efficient searching and filtering. And of course, searching is also being improved with the integration of more advanced AI capabilities. And knowledge experiences can be personalized by delivering only relevant content to the recipient. So as I mentioned, Gen AI will further enable knowledge management using a CCMS by delivering more automated tagging and metadata generation, as well as those enhanced search capabilities. And we'll come back to that in a minute. But first, I want to switch gears, and we are going to look a little bit to the future, but I want to start by talking about what we call a unified content model. So, because a digital-first business seeks to increase their operational efficiency and productivity and improve both customer and employee experiences, IDC believes that organizations will need to adopt a new model for managing enterprise content. We know that cloud, AI, and new services-based architecture are making some of the legacy categories of ECM and digital asset management and web content management and so forth obsolete. We believe that these applications support a set of use cases that are all underpinned by a common library of content services. These application categories, the ECMs and the WCMs and the DAMs and so forth, all made sense in the era of on-premise standalone monolithic applications, but they're cumbersome and inefficient in the context of modern cloud services and architectures and in the context of a digital-first business. So instead, IDC is proposing a new way to approach what we're calling the content supply chain, and that we're calling a unified content model. Now, to be clear, this is an aspirational model. This is where we think organizations are heading. This diagram that I have up is not intended to be an architecture diagram, but rather a model for the future. The lower layers of the model provide that set of common set of content services that I mentioned a few minutes ago, and these are related to security and governance and archiving, measurement and analysis, as well as the tasks, any tasks in the content supply chain that are shared by all content use cases and all content applications. Notice that this includes content components. But the model also recognizes the need for some specialized services, or what we call verbs, that may apply only to certain types of content or certain use cases. And this is what you see under the plan, produce, publish, promote headings. These services can be accessed or utilized via low-code, no-code tools, or increasingly via AI, to construct solutions for explicit jobs to be done or specific use cases that lead to very specific business outcomes. In other words, those jobs to be done are independent of that plumbing at the bottom of the graphic. Of course, content can then be delivered via multiple channels to multiple consumers. Some of those consumers human, some of them digital. So as you think about your own content technology stack, take a more holistic approach and think beyond your specific use cases to use cases across the organization. Okay, so we've mentioned AI a number of times during this presentation. Let's take a closer look now at AI. I'm sure all of you have heard a lot about generative AI recently. almost every vendor is talking about how they're using Gen AI or how they plan to use Gen AI to augment their solutions. But what is the reality of adoption? This data comes from that monthly survey that I mentioned. This is from March 2024. And in March, it showed that over half of organizations globally have already invested significantly in Gen AI. This can include proof of concepts as well as putting solutions into production. 18%, however, have already introduced Gen AI into production, and another 37% have made investment and have established plans for spending on software and related services. Just over a third of organizations are doing some kind of initial testing, and only 10% of organizations globally are not yet at least experimenting with Gen AI. So think about your own organization and make sure you're not being left behind. So what does Gen AI mean specifically for a component content management system? So here's some ways that Gen AI can augment a CCMS. Now, let's be clear, we're still in the early days and vendors are still developing their Gen AI solutions, including ensuring that the security and the accuracy of those solutions meets your needs. But none of the possibilities listed here on this slide are far-fetched or way off in the future. Gen AI will be able to create reusable components based on existing content, make suggestions about components based on document type or context. We expect that AI will support personalization, including translations, and we're already seeing quite a bit of that today. And we're also seeing implementations that include automated tagging and categorization. So let's wrap up now with a few recommendations. Start by evaluating your current content-centric business processes. Consider what documents are being created and for what purpose. Who are the stakeholders? Who participates in the document workflow? Make sure you understand how documents are updated, revised, retained, distributed, redistributed, and eventually disposed of. And of course, it's really important to benchmark your current state so you'll be able to measure process improvements. As you move forward, consider that end-to-end content supply chain, including what integrations are required, who are the consumers, and what formats and channels are required for delivery. And consider your team. How can you improve their productivity and their experience, possibly by integrating generative AI? And finally, engage with vendors and service providers who can help you create a vision for the future with a modern CCMS. And thank you so much for your time and attention today.